Alright guys, so today we're doing a full card prediction for Cage Warriors 121, Sardari versus Desmay, and you guys might be wondering, why is it Sardari versus Desmay? It's supposed to be Sardari versus Ben Lakdar. Well, guess what guys, Ben Lakdar ended up getting injured a couple of days before the fight, so we got a replacement fighter in Donovan Desmay for the Cage Warriors Lightweight Championship in the main event. The co-main event for the Cage Warriors Bantamweight Championship between undefeated 9-0 Jack Cartwright and Sylvester Miller. That should be a very good fight. We have James Webb and Matthew Bonner in a middleweight fight, Ian Gary and Ronson Achman in a welterweight fight. Then we have another welterweight fight on the main card, Madar Flaminas and Jack Grant. That is another welterweight fight. And then we have the prelims right here. So 8 fights on this fight card, 5 fights on the main card, and 3 fights on the prelim. We're going to look at the prelim fights as well. Mark Kinsella and Oban Elliott, 3-1 and 2-2. This fight is a 177 pound catchweight fight. So Mark Kinsella started 0-2 as a professional fighter. Staying up in the welterweight division, Oban Elliott is moving up from the lightweight division to the welterweight division to fight Mark Kinsella, who was once a 0-2 fighter, but after that went on a 2-fight win with a knockout win, and then did a decision win over Thomas Wojcicki. Oban Elliott, 3 wins and only 1 loss. That 1 loss coming to Mike Figlak. Let's see, Mike Figlak, he's fighting on the Cage Warriors 125 card. And in my opinion, he's gonna win that fight. This man's an undefeated fighter fighting Stephen Hooper, most likely gonna win that fight and become 5-0 as a professional fighter. So that is the only man to ever beat him in a professional MMA fight. These are the predictions right here. Out of 81 different votes, 91% going for Elliott to win the fight, and that is basically my prediction as well. Oban Elliott, I mean, he's an absolute beast. He has 3 wins inside of Cage Warriors, second round Kimura, first round TKO, and a first round rear naked submission. As an amateur fighter, first round submission, 2 first round knockouts, first round knockout, first round knockout. First knockout, first and I mean, come on, man. This man's striking as an amateur was amazing, amazing, amazing. His grappling is just so good. So it's either he's going to get a knockout or a TKO in the first round, or he's going to go out there and get a submission in the first round. I don't really give Mark Kinsella that much of a chance in the fight. He's 33, almost 34 years old. So 100%, I'm going with Oban Elliott to win the fight. Most likely by finish in the first round. Not really sure how he's going to get that finish. If it's going to be a KO, TKO, or a submission. I just know 100% Oban Elliott is going to win the fight by first or second round of finish. So the next fight on the fight card, Joshua Onworthy and 0-0 O'Neal Brown. And O'Neal Brown has a couple of amateur fights, but did not do too good in them. Went 1-3 as an amateur fighter with only one of those fights inside of Cage Warriors. That pretty much sums up his whole career. This is kind of an easy prediction for the fight card. I mean, come on, 99% going for Onworthy. I mean, I'm just gonna say it right now, Joshua Onworthy is gonna go out there and probably get a knockout, but his only 2 professional wins came by decision, so who knows if he wins another one by decision, but it's very likely he gets another knockout in the fight. I'm going to say first round knockout for Joshua Onworthy. If he does not get the knockout in the first round, that one is going to go all the way, and he's going to win that one by decision. It's going to be a dominant victory there. So in my opinion, so far 2 dominant victories for Oban Elliott by first or second round finish, and then Joshua Onworthy by first round knockout or unanimous decision. And then we go to the last fight on the prelims, Brian Creighton and Josh Reed. This fight is a bantamweight fight. It's very interesting because Brian Creighton is currently 34, almost 35 years old, and is definitely the smaller fighter. Josh Reed, 5'8" tall. These tabloid predictions are so heavily favoring Reed in the fight. He's so lengthy, you can see it right there. He's so much taller than Brian Creighton. His reach advantage, it doesn't show right here, but he definitely has the reach advantage. And on the ground, his grappling is so good. He uses that height and reach advantage in most of his fights to get you in some really tricky submissions. If you look at how he wins most of his fights, 6 submission wins, 2 decision wins, and 2 knockout wins. His losses pretty spread out, but I think this prelim fight is pretty self-explanatory. I think Josh Reed either wins a fight by first round submission or wins a fight by a dominant grappling performance, maybe even a 30-26 on the scorecards. That is my prediction. First round submission for Josh Reed, or a dominant 30-26 decision for Josh Reed. And then we go to the main card. We have a lot of good fights on the main card. We have Madar Flaminas and Jack Grant. This fight is a welterweight fight. Madar's Flaminas, 32, almost 33 years old. Josh Grant, a little bit younger, maybe a slight age advantage. Moving up from the lightweight division to the welterweight division to fight Madar's Flaminas, who is 6'2" tall. Jack Grant is 6'1" tall, so a very slight height advantage in the fight here. Madar's Flaminas, 8 wins and 2 losses. This is the only 2 losses to Mateusz Figlak, who we talked about a little bit earlier. And then Adam Progner, who's an absolute beast on this Cage Warriors roster. Look at this right here, 88% going with Grant to win the fight. I wouldn't be that cocky that Grant would win the fight. I don't know if there's betting odds for the fight right now. Let me see. Yeah, there are betting odds. So Jack Grant is the minus 200 favorite to win the fight. I wouldn't be that confident to have 88% of the vote going for Grant, but I definitely would have Jack Grant as the favorite to win the fight. I has so much experience. He's a younger fighter in the prime of his career. 16 wins, 6 losses. Guillotine, first on knockout, decision win, first on knockout, first on submission, first on head kick, first on rear naked. I mean, this dude's an absolute beast. 7 knockout wins, 8 submission wins, and only one. Literally just one of his fights has gone all the way, and he's one that won by decision. He has three losses by knockout and 3 losses by decision. I think this one's going to be a pretty dominant victory. Or Madaris Flaminas. I wouldn't count out Madaris Flaminas because look right here. He has 4 wins by decision, 3 wins by knockout, and 1 win by submission. Has some pretty good power on the feet. As an amateur, did really, really good. 5 knockout wins and 3 submission wins. So I wouldn't be too kind to bet on Jack Grant to win the fight just because Madaris Flaminas has a really, really good right hand and could knock you out at any moment in the fight. But do I think that's going to happen? No, I do not. I think Jack Grant's going to go out there, possibly get a knockout of his own, but most likely, I think the first fight on the main card of this fight card is going to go all the way, and Jack Grant, the favorite in this fight, is going to win the fight by decision, or maybe, possibly, a first round at KO or TKO. That is my prediction for that one. And then we have Ian Gary, an absolute beast, 5 wins and 0 losses, taking on Rastan Akman. This one is a welterweight fight. I mean, this pretty much sums it all up. 87% for Gary, mainly by KO and TKO. And, I mean, everyone kind of knows why. Everyone is saying that he's going to win the fight by KO or TKO. Even as an amateur, first round knockout, third round knockout, and TKO. His only loss as an amateur by split decision in a fight. I didn't really watch that fight. That was back in 2018. But I assume he didn't lose the fight, judging on how dominant he's been since then. But decision win inside a cage warrior, second round knockout, first round rear naked, second round knockout, and first round knockout. I mean, he has so much power. He also has some really good grappling and submission skills, really good ground and pound as well. Rastan Akman coming off of 2 straight losses to Jake Matthews inside the UFC and Sergey Kandoku inside the UFC. So two losses inside the UFC against very legit competition. So those losses were both by decision. But even though this man has been inside the UFC, he has fought some pretty legit competition like Jake Matthews and Sergey right here. Ian Gary, in my opinion, is also a UFC caliber fighter in this welterweight division. He's such an absolute beast in the striking game and can also implement his grappling and wrestling background and that amazing ground and pound and control time in the fight. But overall, I think it's very possible we see a knockout from Ian Gary. But he's never been knocked out in his career so far, so I'm going to say this one's going to go all the way, and Ian Gary is going to get his 6th professional win inside the Cage Warriors and win this fight by unanimous decision. And then we have James Webb and Matthew Bonner. Let's check the betting odds for this one. So pretty much a 3-1 favorite for James Webb. That's pretty much what I was thinking as well. 8 wins, 2 losses, and 1 draw. 31 years old. Matthew Bonner is 30 years old. So pretty similar age right there. No real age advantage for either fighter in the fight. A slight height advantage there. Not really sure what the reach is of either fighter, but Matthew Bonner obviously has a much worse record. If you look at how he wins most of his fights. So 2 knockout wins, 2 submission wins, and 4 decision wins. He loses literally every single one of those by decision. Had a horrible amateur career, went 4-4. His opponent, an absolute beast in James Webb, 8 wins, 2 losses, and 1 draw. As a pro, 6 submission wins, 1 knockout win, and 1 decision win. His only 2 losses by knockout and decision. As an amateur, only 1 loss by decision, and all those wins mainly by submission and decision. I think this is going to be an absolute grappling extravaganza from James Webb. I think he's going to go for takedown. Once he finally gets Matthew Bonner down, which I assume would be very early in the fight. I expect him to go for a lot of submissions. It's very possible he gets a submission in the first round, but I think whatever happens in the fight, he's going to get the submission, but I think that submission is going to land in the second round, so I'm going to go with James Webb, 8-2-1 to win this fight and get his 9th professional win in this one by second round submission against Matthew Bonner. And now we have some title fights. So we have Jack Cartwright and Sylvester Miller. This is a very good bantamweight fight. So we have undefeated Jack Cartwright, 9 wins, 0 losses, and 0 draws. Sylvester Miller, 9 wins and 3 losses. I mean, Jack Cartwright's an absolute beast. I mean, if I just scoot down to these tables of predictions, it's not really that surprising. 94% going for Cartwright to win the fight, mainly by KO, TKO. A lot of people saying submission, a lot of people saying decision. Only 6% going for Miller. The betting odds for the fight, let's check right here. minus 350 and then plus 275. That's kind of what I expected. For Cartwright to be a humongous favorite as the bantamweight champion inside a cage where he's 26 and a half years old. Humongous height advantage. Sylvester Miller, 5'5" inches tall, so a humongous height advantage. I'm not really sure how old Sylvester Miller is, but I'm assuming a little bit of an age advantage for Jack Cartwright, who's an undefeated fighter as an amateur. Also went undefeated with 4 straight wins: submission, decision, and knockout. As a pro, if you look at how he wins his ones, 5 submission wins, three knockouts, and 1 decision. So most of his wins coming by finish. Only 1 fight went all the way, and that was against, let's check, Manuel Billick inside a cage warrior. So that was the only fight that went all the way. We'll look at Sylvester Miller, 9 wins, 3 losses. Don't ever count this man out, because he has 6 submission wins himself, 3 decision wins. Can definitely fare okay in this fight on the ground against Jack Cartwright, but I don't think it's going to be enough. I know he has some pretty good submission skills on the ground, some pretty good grappling, some pretty good wrestling on the ground, but he has no fights inside of Cage Warriors. This is his first fight inside of Cage Warriors. I mean, I really don't see much of a chance for Sylvester Miller in his first fight inside of Cage Warriors for the belt against an absolute beast in Jack Cartwright. I think they're literally just going to feed Sylvester Miller to Jack Cartwright and get him another bantamweight championship win against Sylvester Miller in the fight. And I think after this one here, he's going to be 10-0, and that is a really good record, a really impressive record. And I think after he wins that one, maybe he decides to go over to the UFC, maybe he decides to go over to Bellator, or maybe he decides to stick around for a couple more wins and defend that bantamweight belt a couple more times. But I think he definitely wins a fight by submission in the first or second round. Maybe it's a knockout. I just know this one's gonna be a finish from Jack Cartwright. I think it's gonna be a dominant decision, KO, submission. I mean, whatever happens, I know Jack Cartwright is gonna win the fight. And maybe even go on to the UFC in his next couple of fights, maybe Dana White's Contender Series. But Jack Cartwright, that man's an absolute beast, and he's really young in his career, so I assume he's going to do really good in the fight, so I'm definitely going with Jack Cartwright to win that fight. And guys, the main event for Cage Warriors 121, Aggie Stardardy and Donovan Desmay for the Cage Warriors Lightweight Championship. This fight is going to be very interesting, especially because Donovan Desmay is taking this fight on short notice. He was supposed to fight Mehdi Ben Laidar, but that fight ended up getting canceled. He ended up getting injured. Not really sure what happened there. But now this is the new main event for the Cage Warriors Lightweight Championship. And guess what, guys? These are the betting odds at minus 220 and then plus 180. There was one time where the betting odds were minus 150. I would have put all my money at minus 150 on Aggie Stardardy. But this is a very interesting fight. Aggie Stardardy, I believe, has 6 submission wins and like 4 knockout wins. The rest coming by decision. Let's check right here. 6 submissions, 4 knockouts, and 3 decisions. His losses both by decision. He has a lot of wins inside of Cage Warriors. Started with 5 straight wins in a row. Lost 1, second round knockout, lost 1, got rear naked, second round triangle, second round rear naked, a decision win, a triangle, a knockout, a decision. I mean, right now, currently, he's on a 7-fight win streak. Absolutely insane, coming off a very close win over Jack Grant in his last fight. Jack Grant is also on this fight card and is also an absolute beast. He ended up beating him in a really close fight for the Cage Warriors lightweight belt right here, for the vacant lightweight belt. His opponent, Donovan Desmay, 14 wins and 5 losses. If you look at how he wins his fights, 7 knockout wins, 3 submission wins, and 4 decision wins. This fight is going to be amazing. I cannot wait for this one to happen. He's been in Cage Warriors for quite a while, since 2017. Lost 1 fight, got 2 wins, lost 1. I got a Dr. Stoppage win, lost with a Mason Jones, if you guys don't know who he is. He just fought inside the UFC, a top 100 lightweight fighter in the world. Came back after that with a second round knockout and a first round rear naked submission. I mean, man, this fight's gonna be really interesting. I expect the fight's gonna go all the way. Most likely, and one of these two guys is gonna win the fight by decision. But Aggie Stardardy has a lot of power in his hands. Could get a knock in the fight. Donovan Desmay also has a lot of power in his hands, also could get a knock in the fight. I would probably give the edge in the grappling and wrestling game to Aggie Stardardy. In the striking game, I'd say it's pretty 50-50 in the striking game, but because Aggie Stardardy has that grappling advantage, the wrestling advantage in the fight, I actually think that's gonna be what does it in the fight. Donovan Desmay doesn't have as good of grappling or wrestling as Aggie Stardardy. Aggie Stardardy, if the fight is really close on the feet, at the end of each one of these rounds, he could just just go for a takedown, get the fight to the ground, get some control time, some ground and pound, and end up winning the rounds. That is how Aggie Stardardy should approach this fight. Keep the fight even on the feet, and end each round with a takedown, get some ground and pound, and some control time. And I think that's exactly what he needs to do to win this fight. And that is why I 100% have Aggie Stardardy, the really small favorite at -220, Aggie Stardardy, and I have him winning the fight by unanimous decision.